Why, after more than 50 years, do people still question the moon landings? On July 20, 1969, an estimated 600 million people watched as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon. It was hailed as a technological and cultural milestone, a unifying moment during the height of Cold War tension. But despite global celebration, doubt quickly followed. From the beginning, some claimed the broadcast was too perfect, the footage too smooth, and the feat too extraordinary. As time passed, the voices of skepticism grew louder, especially with the rise of the internet. What started as fringe theory gained traction in mainstream conversations. A central reason the debate persists is the emotional resonance of the moon landing. It symbolizes national pride, scientific dominance, and the limitless potential of humanity. When something carries that much symbolic weight, it also becomes a ripe target for distrust. For some, it's not just about facts, it's about belief. In an era where misinformation spreads rapidly and trust in institutions is low, even historic events are up for re-examination. Conspiracy thrives where clarity is lost and transparency is questioned. Adding to this is the generational gap. For older generations, the moon landing was personal and awe-inspiring. For younger ones, it's a distant, grainy video surrounded by a cloud of uncertainty. This disconnect fuels curiosity and doubt. Could the moon landings have been staged to win the Cold War? A major theory holds that the moon landing was a cinematic performance staged to beat the Soviets in the space race. The US, desperate for a victory, may have chosen to simulate success rather than risk failure, especially after setbacks like Apollo 1, where astronauts died in a launchpad fire. Proponents of this theory often cite the geopolitical stakes of the 1960s. With Vietnam dragging on, and domestic unrest intensifying, a moon landing would serve as the perfect distraction and morale booster. A convincing video, they argue, could achieve this without risking any lives. Hollywood filmmaker Stanley Kubrick frequently enters this narrative due to the realism of his film 2001, A Space Odyssey. Some claim that he was hired to direct the fake moon footage. While there's no evidence, this myth persists because it feels cinematic and believable. Skeptics also point to the US government's documented use of psychological operations and disinformation, asking, if other operations were faked, why not this one? For conspiracy theorists, it's not about proving the hoax, it's about sowing enough doubt to question the entire event. Critics say this theory falls apart under scrutiny. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and contractors worked on Apollo. A fake would require a massive airtight conspiracy across multiple agencies with no leaks for decades. Yet, for believers, that only makes the lie more epic, and therefore more convincing. Do shadows, flags, and footprints reveal more than NASA wants us to know? Footage of the moon landing is often the centerpiece of hoax claims. Critics point to anomalies like the American flag waving despite a vacuum, or the shadows that don't align with a single light source, and the perfectly crisp footprints supposedly made in dry, dusty soil. Each of these has a scientific explanation. The flag waved because it was mounted on a horizontal rod and moved during placement. Shadows appeared inconsistent due to the uneven lunar surface and wide-angle camera lenses. And the moon's regolith holds impressions well, even without moisture. But for skeptics, explanations from experts feel like hand-waving. The visual weirdness feels more real than distant technical jargon. And in the age of viral videos, visual evidence carries powerful emotional weight, sometimes more than the science behind it. Additionally, photos that seem too perfect fuel suspicion. Why are there no stars in the lunar sky? Why does the lighting look so theatrical? These observations often go viral not because they're accurate, but because they're easily understood and emotionally provocative. Part of the power of conspiracy lies in simplicity. A single image or claim, like a waving flag, can feel more persuasive than complex physics. It invites anyone to feel like a detective, using common sense over expert analysis. That emotional involvement is what keeps the theory alive. What happened to the original tapes and telemetry data, and why does it matter? In 2006, NASA made headlines when it announced that the original high-resolution tapes of the moon landing had been erased and reused. Officially, it was due to data shortages in the 1980s. But to skeptics, it sounded like deliberate destruction of evidence. Another flashpoint is the missing telemetry data. These were technical logs that tracked the spacecraft's movements and performance. While summaries and backups exist, the originals are gone. This creates a vacuum of certainty, and conspiracies often grow in those vacuums. NASA argues that hundreds of independent signals, including many from Soviet tracking stations, confirmed Apollo's journey. But when a historic record disappears, intentionally or not, it undermines confidence. People don't like being told, "Just trust us." To many viewers, especially younger ones that were raised in the digital age, deleting historic data is unthinkable. Why wouldn't you just back it up 10 times? The idea that such a defining moment was so poorly preserved feels almost suspicious by default. Whether this was bureaucratic carelessness or something darker, the effect is the same. The missing data becomes the perfect fuel for conspiracy theories. It's no longer just about science. It's about memory, proof, and whether institutions deserve our trust. Why do some believe that the astronauts' silence or behavior suggests something to hide? Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, retreated from public life after the mission. And Buzz Aldrin, the second, famously punched a conspiracy theorist who accused him of lying. To some, this suggests shame or guilt. To others, it's simply exhaustion or trauma. Armstrong's quiet demeanor has been interpreted in many ways. Some say he was humble and private. Others believe he carried the burden of a lie. His few interviews are dissected endlessly for tone, word choice, and any perceived discomfort. Aldrin's mental health struggles and battles with alcoholism have also raised eyebrows. Conspiracists argue that guilt can manifest both physically and emotionally. NASA supporters argue it's the pressure and expectation of being living legends. While there's no hard evidence linking astronaut behavior to deceit, their human vulnerabilities have been weaponized in conspiracy circles. In a world where people search for tells and micro-expressions, even a nervous smile becomes suspect. This kind of analysis ignores context and humanity. Not everyone wants to be a symbol. Not every hero wants to relive their trauma. But ambiguity is fertile ground for conspiracy theories, and the astronauts have become unwilling characters in a story they didn't write. If deepfakes and CGI can create anything now, couldn't they do the same thing with the moon landing? Modern audiences are used to flawless digital effects. Entire planets and battles are rendered daily in movies and games. If we can fake it so well today, was it really so hard to fake a moon landing in 1969? The comparison seems logical, but it's totally misleading. In 1969, special effects were crude by today's standards. Simulating low gravity, perfect lighting, and believable physics without computer-generated imagery would have been nearly impossible, especially in real time. Still, belief isn't about realism, it's about possibility. The more we see manipulated media, the more we believe everything can be manipulated. And so, past footage becomes vulnerable to reinterpretation. The moon landing footage was broadcast live, verified worldwide, and didn't have the hallmarks of editing. Yet even real-time events are now questioned, simply because we've seen reality faked so well elsewhere. This skepticism isn't just about the moon, it's about the digital age's impact on memory. Trust erodes when fiction becomes indistinguishable from fact. The question becomes not just was it faked, but could we ever know either way? What emotional and psychological needs do the moon landing conspiracies fulfill? For many, believing that the moon landing was faked provides a feeling of empowerment. It allows people to feel as if they've outsmarted a powerful system. In a world where people often feel powerless or misled, a conspiracy offers both clarity and control. There's also a powerful community aspect. Online groups, forums, and social media pages allow believers to connect, to share theories, and to find a sense of belonging. The more they question, the more they feel like enlightened truth seekers in a world full of sheep. The moon landing hoax theory also appeals to a growing distrust in institutions. Government scandals, corporate lies, and media manipulation have conditioned people to expect deceit. If lies have been told before, it's easy to believe they've been told again, and this time on a cosmic scale. There's an emotional high in knowing the truth. In this case, that truth feels rebellious, intellectually bold, and suspicious of authority. Doubt becomes a kind of badge of intelligence, whether the evidence supports it or not. Ironically, the more people attempt to debunk the theory, the more conspiracists double down. It becomes about identity, not just about ideas. In this environment, Even undeniable facts can bounce off belief systems hardened by emotion and then reinforced by echo chambers. If America faked the moon landing, why didn't their greatest enemy blow the whistle? During the space race, the Soviet Union had both the technology and the motivation to monitor NASA's every move. They tracked Apollo 11 signals, followed its telemetry data, and were the only nation with the expertise to independently verify or debunk a lunar mission. If the US had faked the moon landing, the USSR had every reason to expose it. A propaganda victory like that would have humiliated the United States, and further validated the Soviet space program, which had achieved many earlier milestones like the first man in space. But the Soviets didn't raise any objections. In fact, they publicly acknowledged the landing and congratulated the US. The Soviet silence is one of the strongest arguments against the hoax theory, and it's still often ignored in conspiracy circles. Some theorists argue the USSR was bribed or complicit, but there's no evidence to support that. It's a last resort argument, made to preserve doubt in the face of logic. If the conspiracy was global, then no evidence could ever be trusted, turning belief into dogma. The lack of Soviet objection serves as a rare moment of Cold War consensus. It may be the most unintentionally powerful evidence of all, that two rival superpowers agreed on something so monumental because the truth was visible, verifiable, and real. If we deny the moon landing, what greater truth is at risk? The moon landing was more than just a technological achievement. It was a cultural and emotional triumph. It represented what humanity could accomplish when it reached beyond itself. Denying it isn't just about facts. It's about eroding one of the last universally inspiring moments of the 20th century. When doubt replaces inspiration, society becomes more cynical. Believing the moon landing was fake implies that great feats are only illusions, and that human effort is always suspect. That worldview doesn't just damage trust, it diminishes possibility. But skepticism isn't inherently bad. Questioning authority and challenging history can lead to deeper understanding. The danger arises when skepticism turns into nihilism, when no amount of evidence can satisfy and every answer is part of the cover-up. In a world flooded with deepfakes, AI voices, and filtered realities, it's more important than ever to distinguish between critical thinking and compulsive disbelief. When everything is questioned without evidence, nothing remains sacred. We must decide if we want a world where truth still matters. The moon landing was real, and believing in it isn't about blind faith. It's about honoring human ingenuity, courage, and the pursuit of knowledge. Well, which side are you on? Was the moon landing faked or was it real? Let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. If this video challenged your perspective or reinforced what you've always believed, truth matters and curiosity matters more. Share this video with someone who's still undecided. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.